Okay, so some of you might be experiencing problems with your turbo, and in this particular incident, if your turbo wastegate has gotten stuck in a downward position, it's because when they manufactured this car and the turbo on this car, they made it so that the wastegate gets stuck right on the housing here, which is the back plate of this bolt. But it's just housing. So what I've done through reading blogs is I've taken a Dremel, and the first step is you release the wastegate. And let me back up before you even get there. You need to remove a few things. You need to detach the exhaust here, and underneath there's a bracket which you can see down here. Okay, that holds the turbo in place, but it also holds the first part of the exhaust in place. If you disconnect that, your exhaust will drop down a little bit, and the rubber shock absorbers further back in the car, about halfway back underneath, will hold that exhaust in place. So it's not going to go anywhere if your rubber absorbers are in good condition. So once you drop the exhaust, you take out these 3 bolts. There's one here, and one on the bottom. You remove those, the collar pulls back, and you can drop the exhaust. Okay, once the exhaust is dropped, and I've done this ahead of time, I should have started this video much earlier, but once you've done that, you can push on the top of the wastegate, which frees up the bottom, and then on the outside, you can release the wastegate. It takes a bit of work, but the key is getting this little bit of motion up off the housing, which is right there, which is where it catches. Once you've done that, you probably don't want to have to do this again. So I recommend, as others on forums have recommended, to do a bit of Dremel up. And that's what I've done here. And it's hard to tell because it's a very dark place, but you'll feel there's a ridge right here at the bottom. And once you find that ridge, you Dremel it, and you're probably going to have to Dremel a bit of the inside, not the outside, but the inside of this collar right here, until you get completely free motion with this thing. Because if this ever comes loose again, you want to be able to grab that wastegate, flip it up, and reattach it without having to remove all of this extra stuff. I would recommend, once you've Dremeled in there, get a vacuum in there, get all of those metal particles out of there, because that is your turbo, and you don't want metal going into the fan that spins the turbo. You just don't want any metal particles in there. So clean it out really good, and then you have complete free flow of this wastegate should this ever come disconnected again. And this is about the second time it's come disconnected. The first time our garage did it. Now these cars are older, and it's hard to find someone who knows what they're doing to work on these cars. So that's pretty much it. I still have quite a bit to put together, quite a bit of extra stuff that I've taken off that I now know I didn't need to. But the simplest way is just drop your exhaust, and you can get right in there. I'll just show you real quick what that looks like from the bottom. There's that bracket. Those line up, and that's what allows your exhaust to stay bracketed. Like I said, these rubber brackets will hold your exhaust in place. So when you drop it, it'll stay in place and you can get to that wastegate. It's probably the best and the quickest way to get to that wastegate, to Dremel in there and clean that thing out so it doesn't get stuck again.